Hello and welcome. You are looking at nothing. Currently nothing until we start to magnify it. I want you to get an idea for what this image is going to look like before we put the magnifier in front of it and see what this thing is all about. During the unboxing I was a little harsh on it, but it actually has some really good glass. But it's still not perfect. The problem with this thing is its exit pupil. Here we see a lot of the scope body, we have a really big field of view, but if you try to bring it back any farther, it's going to be touching your eye. If you shift it one pixel farther forward, we still have a pretty decent view through it, albeit slightly less field of view, much less of the scope body, but it becomes very, very tight in the eye box. In fact, speaking of the eye box, here it is. Most magnifiers aren't that good. This is only acceptable. You basically have to be right on top of it for it to be perfect, and even then, you gotta be really careful about getting too close. And because of that, we're gonna leave it farther back for this first little segment. Again, I want you to get a feel for a little bit of nothing. On the far left is going to be the PA-LER Gen 4. On the right is going to be this Eotech G30. Why the Gen 4 PA? Well, that's the only thing I have currently that I can directly compare this to give you guys an idea of this. The field of view on this G30 is absolutely stellar. It's bright, it's clear, and it's sharp. Comparing it to the Gen 4 PA, it absolutely trounces it. But this is at 30 yards. Not many people are going to be using a 3x magnifier here. Oh no, you're going to be using it here at about 400 yards or so. And this is where you get a much grander sense of the field of view. Despite that though, the name long eye relief really does play a huge difference because it's about an inch farther forward than where the G30 is currently mounted. But nevertheless, the G30 is brighter, it's sharper, and it's clearer. And that's really important no matter who you are. But let's throw a red dot in front of it and see how it looks. The red dot in question today is the Holosun AEMS, which I have yet to do a full review on, but this is part of the testing process. Now, this is where the difference really comes into play. On the left, the image is clearly much darker, though the sun did come out on the Eotech a little bit more because it was very intermittent clouds, but nevertheless, you can see the tint more, it's darker, and it's not as sharp of an image. Plus, that field of view also plays in while you're looking through the optic. So, all in all, it's a big difference. Now, is this a fair and direct comparison? No, not really, especially when you factor in the price difference. The Eotech G30, though it's discontinued from Eotech, you could still find it for around 300 bucks, and this PA Gen 4 is about 100 bucks, and if you get a decent side folding mount, which you still won't get with the G30, you're at about 150, so about half price. So it all depends on what you're willing to get. However, for about 150 bucks, you can get yourself the Holosun HMX3X, which we'll talk about soon. When you're behind this G30, you can get left to right a little bit before you start getting too far away from it. Honestly, I think the PA has a little bit here, but also a little bit more as far as getting forward and backwards. With the PA, when you go forward and back on it, it doesn't really change the field of view that much, just how much of the scope body you can see. So it's a lot more forgiving than this. And like I mentioned, at least between these two, the LER is at least an inch farther forward than this Eotech throughout this entire video. So if you're really worried about eye relief, that's the one to get. Now, before you start asking me, why don't you have an HMX3X to compare to everything if you say it's the gold standard magnifier? And you know what? I have absolutely zero excuse for you. Alex had sent it in, I reviewed it, I love the thing, I praised it. My brother bought one for his AUG, actually no, I'm sorry, his Chris, and it's absolutely fantastic, and I just don't have one because I'm like, when am I going to need this? Well, I'm retarded, okay? There's no excuse for it. Clearly, these two videos were filmed at completely different times, but you can still see how good the HMX3X is compared to the G30. The only real difference is the field of view. And even then, it's not by a very large margin. You're talking about minimal field of view difference. You do see less of the body with the HMX3X, and if I remember correctly, the eye relief was similar to the PA Gen 4. Really, really good stuff. And if you're going for apples to apples, you're talking about $100 savings going with the HMX3X here as opposed to this G30. So if budget's on your mind, the HMX3X is still the clear winner. And I've seen this exact model go for as cheap as $150 recently. So besides the large field of view and the pretty clear glass, the only other reason you might opt for this is because the weird sort of feature set it has. In case you haven't seen my unboxing, this is a direct clip from it. We have the very weird turrets, which are like this. These have zero detent. Yep, you heard that right. They spin completely freely. They're very, very loose. All you have to do is rub your finger on it like so, and they shift. They make absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. Whoever was behind that marketing was retarded, in my opinion. Now, this is not so much of a big criticism, but the adjustment nut for the QD lever, for whatever reason, has this really weird spring-loaded finger in it, which just overcomplicates it, and it doesn't feel very good, and it feels like it's going to break on you. And if it does, guess what? This thing is going to loosen up over time, and it's just not going to be good. Despite that fact, though, this is still not a tilt-away mount, and I don't even know if they offer that for this. So unless you were looking for a very specific setup just like this, I would absolutely look elsewhere. The final segment of this video, and we are here at the 50-yard line. I didn't bother bringing this to the 100 and 200 simply because we already looked at 400 yards, and we know that this thing has a very good looking image to it, albeit at a very specific distance on the pick rail. Here we move it that one slot farther forward, which I was talking about earlier on, and I throw a couple of different red dots in front of it. Not much, because at the time I didn't have as good of a selection. In fact, this is quite some time ago. I regret to say that I've had this for a while, and I just have been so unenthusiastic about it that I never decided to just get through it and finish for all of you. So if you were looking for this review, contemplating if it was going to be good or not, and you got it and don't like it, I'm sorry. The first little red dot we're going to throw in front of it is the SIG MSR. If you remember from that video, the body on this thing is very small, and as a result, here we see a lot of it. What I'm currently doing is moving that red dot farther away and then closer to the magnifier to see if it makes any sort of improvement. It really doesn't seem to do much of anything, but that's to be expected. This is, again, something with a very small window. But what happens if we put something with a larger window in front of it? This is the Gen 1 UH1 that when I still had it, again, quite some time ago, and you can clearly see that we have a very visible representation of the body through this UH1. The reason for that is very simple. This magnifier isn't high enough. Oh, simple solution. Put a spacer under there. You'll look through it just fine. Well, I would have done that if the box that I had gotten had a spacer. There was no spacer. And it is what it is. This video is going to get wrapped up here because this thing has some, honestly, really good glass behind it. Just look at the image quality here at 50 yards. It's sharp from edge to edge. It's got a little bit of distortion, but nothing crazy whatsoever. It lets in a lot of light, and it does what it's supposed to do. It magnifies your image through a red dot or a reflex, and it does it very well in that regard. Sure, it's got some weird quirks, but if that's what you're looking for, then you're going to be happy with it. Accept its shortcomings and enjoy it. But again, for the price, I'd much rather have an HMX 3X and save $100, or wait until they go on sale and buy two of them for $150. Adjusting the elevation knob, yeah, we can fix that lower bar, but not without bringing the top bar down. And the reason for that is simple. The field of view through this thing is that big. It's almost a detriment. It's all going to come down to what's more important to you. A larger field of view when you're magnifying your red dot, or just a straight shot focusing a lot more on that center reticle. I moved the UH1 finally all the way back as close as it'll go to see if it'll fix it. It doesn't, but the problem now is you can't touch the buttons behind the UH1. So if you had to adjust the brightness for whatever reason, now you can't. And you can't tilt this off to the side to adjust it because you have to take the entire thing off. In my opinion, it's just a system that doesn't make sense to me. It's a little flawed. If you're looking to spend $300 or a little bit more on a magnifier, check out the HMX 3X Titanium. They did apparently a lot of improvements, and I'm really curious to see how that is. I got to get my hands on one of those, and hopefully it'll be good enough to keep forever. Anyway, that is all for this review. Thank you all very much for watching, and as always, see you again next time. And a very huge thank you to all of my Patreon providers. Without you, this wouldn't be possible. If you'd like to help support the channel but don't want to join my Patreon, I completely understand. But you can still help support by using my affiliate links in the description below. Thanks again for watching.